Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you. How are you?
Good, sir. How's California treating you?
California's treating me great.
Welcome. I always like to start with the fun part of this. So just give us a little background on you as a human and where did you grow up? What did you do for fun as a kid? Walk us through you as a young man.
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised in Toronto, so I'm Canadian by birth and lived my whole childhood life up there until I came to the States for university, as my mother says, and never came home again. So I've been in the States ever since high school, came here for university and just stuck around ever since then. Growing up, really into lake life up there. So spent all my summers in the lakes region north of Toronto. So lots of water skiing and windsurfing and swimming and canoeing and all of that great stuff. That was where my true heart and soul was growing up. Couldn't wait to get up to the cottage each weekend and all summer.
What was the college experience for you? Stay in the Northeast? Did you go south? Or what'd you do?
Yeah, I stayed in the Northeast. I went to a school called Vassar College in upstate New York, a town called Poughkeepsie. So it was a great, residential small college experience, liberal arts. So I had the chance to, take a whole slew of classes that I was super interested in and, met fantastic people. Really a wonderful experience.
Now that you're getting older, as you have 3 kids and you're running startups, what's your recharging mechanism? What do you do when you got to reload, when you're low on energy? What is it?
A few different things, depending on the situation. One of my favorites is woodworking, of all things. There's something about power tools, blade spinning at 12,000 RPM and the, potential to lose a finger if you're not careful, that really forces you to focus and shift mind space into a different place. Now, I don't make anything too complicated, but it's fun to get in there and be able to build some stuff. It's a very, very substantial contrast to my day-to-day work, and I appreciate that.
Is this something you do in your garage or you go somewhere?
Well, I started off in the garage, but then the sawdust got on my wife's nerves, and so she very generously gave me a gift of a shed a few years ago. So everything moved out to the shed. So now the sawdust is all contained in there. Actually got plenty of room now, which is really nice.
What's the project you're the happiest about?
Well, I've built a bunch of outdoor furniture. So we have an outdoor dining room set that I built and a whole slew of outdoor chairs, and those just get a ton of use. So I'm really happy with those. But I'm working on a chair right now for my office that is incredibly vexing. I've been working on it for a year and I can't quite seem to get it right. So that's the opposite end. That's the frustration one.
If you could do dinner with anybody in the history of life, born or ceased, who do you have a beer with?
Oh my goodness. Good question. And there's so many different people. I'm always in my heart, I'm kind of an economist and a nerd on that front. So Adam Smith just popped into my head. That would be fantastic. Kind of the father of modern economics, to be able to spend some time with him, understand his thinking in the absence of any knowledge or any study on this topic. How did he come up with so many topics that are just, I was just talking about animal spirits with somebody, how we need to get animal spirits back into our industry. That's from him, right? How did he come up with all of that in a vacuum at that point? Fascinating.
Love it. So let's get into Dwellsy. First, I want to know about the name. How'd you guys name it? What's the backstory? What's the fun story behind the name?
I wish I had a super fun story for this. Instead, I have the technocrats answer. So early in my career, I did brand creation. A bunch of things I learned in that process have stuck with me. And so, characteristics of a name that really sticks with people. There's certain things you can do. One, it has to be pronounceable and spellable. 2, you have to be able to control the name itself. 3, there are certain characteristics of letter patterns. Having some unusual letters in the name helps it be more memorable. Having it end in an SY, that makes it more endearing, a little bit easier to build a relationship with. So those are some of the kind of core characteristics that I was looking for up front. Plus, I had to be able to afford the .com, and I didn't have $1 million to spend on that point. So I literally went through tens of thousands of URL names, and I'm not joking, tens of thousands of weeks of evening and weekend work, knowing that I needed to incorporate this thing and I wanted to have a good name out of the gate, and Dwellsy was the winner.
So rent.com wasn't available?
Somebody seems to be camped out on that. I don't know what they're doing with it, but it's out there.
So walk us through the origin story of Dwellsy. What was the aha moment? Were you, I don't know, on a run? Were you just cracking your head open on a project? What was the thesis of it?
Yeah, so, the genesis of it started when I was running operations for one of the big REITs, Essex Property Trust, and saw the collapse of the Craigslist marketplace, tried to get people in the industry focused on the problem this was creating, and really couldn't get industry response motivated at the time. And I just got more and more frustrated by, I talked to renters. They were having a really tough time in the search. There was just no good tools tools available out there for them. And then for me as a landlord at the time, the tools available were just getting really expensive and weren't as good as they needed to be. And I thought that there was an opportunity for a truly comprehensive marketplace. But I wasn't actually thinking of starting a company until I was actually out for coffee with somebody who I thought he might be selling his property management company, because that was the thing I was looking at doing, maybe buying a small property management company, going that direction.
Don't do that to yourself.
No, that immensely challenging work, and I have tons of respect for the folks doing that. But oh my goodness, that's hard work. Anyway, it turned out his business was not for sale, and we just got to talking about the industry. We talked about this problem, and I started, basically raging in the meeting about, how frustrated I was by how broken this market was, how badly it needed to be fixed, how there was no good data in the space, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, wow, you seem a lot more worked up about that than you were about buying my business. Maybe you should think about that. By the time I got home, talked to my co-founder and decided, all right, we're going to do this. So
so if you were talking to my 6-year-old, walk us through in simple terms what does Dwellsy do, and how does it stand out from the marketplace right now?
So at the core of it, we help renters find their next rental. We help landlords get their place rented. It's a completely free and open marketplace. We welcome listings from anybody in the industry. We have over 25,000 property management companies that list with us today. And then we sell data. So we know what rent is in every market in the country. So if you need to know what the rent is for any product type anywhere in the country with a greater degree of accuracy than it's ever been known, that's the primary way that we make our money.
Who are the core customers? I imagine you have two different sides, right?
Yeah, so we think of customers in a couple of different groups. So there's the marketplace, where obviously we need to do a fantastic job of serving property managers. We need to do a fantastic job of serving renters. And, those are really important relationships for us, but not necessarily customers in the same way. We have customers who are buying our data, and that's, an incredibly broad range of different types of organizations. So, owners and operators in the real estate space, as you might expect, but also, hedge funds, data companies, the full range of different folks doing, trying to understand the American consumer and trying to understand rents.
So on the individual renter side and property management, that's, I imagine, a lot more B2C. And then on the other side, you have more B2E enterprise level, right? More business to business.
Yeah, it's one of the core challenges of this business is we have to be a consumer platform and appeal to renters. We've got to be an SMB platform because we've got 25,000 property managers on the platform. The average property manager has a couple hundred units. They're not all Greystar or Asset Living, right? The scale of these companies, we have to appeal to that SMB level. And then we're selling to folks like Moody's out there, true enterprise sales, and, helping them figure out how their data science team can dig into the platform. So we really need to cover the whole spectrum. So that is a challenge for us to manage on a day-to-day basis.
What geographies are you guys covering? Is it nationwide? Is it specific markets? How does that look?
Yeah, so we're nationwide within the U.S. We have about 36% of U.S. rentals on the platform. And there's some markets where we're stronger and some markets where we're weaker. But generally speaking, we follow where professional property managers using property management software are. So that has a tendency to skew to some newer markets. For example, a city like Atlanta or Dallas will have a ton of inventory on Dwellsy versus, older line cities where the property management's a little more fragmented, a little more old school in certain regards.
So I'm a recovering property manager. I used to have a company, property management company. That's why that was my joke from before. We used to use Yardi. What are the big property management platforms today? What are you guys plugged into?
Yeah, so we have about 30 integrations with property management software companies. So, it's pretty much every name you can imagine. It's our goal to integrate with all of them. So, Yardi, Folio, Trada, Buildium, Propertyware, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a long list.
Any new AI property management softwares that I don't know about? I don't know about any of them anymore, but anything new coming to market that's changing the game?
Yeah, so it's hard to say changing the game because we're not a client of the systems and we're not really in there using them on a day-to-day basis. I think what's been really exciting is to see the advent of a lot of property management software systems targeting smaller property managers. For a long time it was just AppFolio, and they continue to do a fantastic job. But even AppFolio wasn't that great if you had 25 to 50 units. And now we're seeing a lot of products out there like Rentvine or others who are doing a nice job serving that smaller audience. And there really is a diverse cohort, different property management software systems out there that offer, a variety of different flavors of service, depending on how you want to run your business. There's good options available in most categories now, which is nice to see. I think if you were to look 5-10 years ago, it was really just, the big enterprise software options and then AppFolio, and that was kind of it. Now there's a much broader range of options available which has been exciting.
Looking at you guys from 100,000 foot view, what makes you guys stand out? What is your superpower?
Our superpower at this point is aggregating inventory. We have been fantastically fortunate to get great support from property managers all across the country, all different sizes and shapes of property managers. And they've, united around 3 high quality leads as a compelling reason to list on Dwellsy. And so we've made it easy for them to do that. And then they've gone ahead and done that. And so for the renter looking at our platform, the depth and breadth of inventory and the quality of inventory is amazing. It's head and shoulders above. I do renter interviews a lot, and there's always this moment where I lose the renter because they get into the product and they realize that there's a whole bunch of inventory they've never seen before. And that's always an exciting moment for me to see that. And then on the data side, it just means that if you want to really understand rents, we're just on a conversation this morning with somebody who's been looking for good quality rent data for years and just didn't think it existed. And for them to be able to understand, how this is really working, the fact that it's public data that's coming to us directly from the property management software systems, being made available in a professional and effective way that they can use it, is kind of life-changing for a lot of folks in the industry, because you can do things you didn't think you could do before when you were relying on what a best guess was for what rents might be. But now to have the actual numbers, really, one of our clients said, we used to ask consumers what they would charge for their groceries in their pantry, which is a very abstract concept. Now we can go to the grocery store and check prices, and that's a radical change for data quality.
What does the vision look like for the next 3 to 5 years for you guys? What's on the roadmap? What's a big, hairy, audacious goal? What are you going for over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so continuing to grow the data business, expand the products that are offered, and be able to serve a broader range of folks. But that's not really the big, hairy, audacious goal. The really big goal is Dwellsy to be ubiquitous with renting, and for renters to make Dwellsy their first destination out of the gate. I think when we get to that point where every renter is starting their search at Dwellsy, I think that's when it gets really exciting for everybody in the industry. That's when marketplace functionality is really operating in the way that it should in this space, with highly liquid, transparent, very low cost marketing channel for landlords, and for renters the ability to be able to do a true high quality search. We have this experience on the for sale side that we all take for granted, where you can go to a Zillow or a Redfin or something like that, and you can see materially all the inventory. There's always 1 or 2 that's not going to be on there, but you can confidently look at it knowing that you're seeing 99% of the available inventory that might be right for you. And on rentals, the traditional sites might have 5 or 10% of the rentals. It's just a tiny slice of what's out there. And a lot of the so-called rental listings aren't actually rental listings. They're there to bring in a lead, but it's not an actual available rental, which makes for a low quality lead for the property manager and a frustrating experience for the renter, just wasting everybody's time. So to be able to show all of the available inventory accurately in one place, I think is going to really dramatically change the game for everybody.
If I'm a landlord again one day, walk me through the user experience. How do I list a property on Dwellsy? What tools do you provide? Walk me through what you guys planned out for that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, depending on the type of property management software you use, if you use something like an AppFolio or a Buildium that's a little more prescriptive about how you work within it, then you're just on Dwellsy. All the listings flow to Dwellsy, so there's nothing you have to do as a landlord. Just your listings automatically appear on Dwellsy, and the inquiries flow back into your CRM automatically. Everything just works out of the box. You don't have to think about it at all. If you're on something like a Yardi or an Entrata, you need to actually go in and click the button. But you click the button for any of the other listing services, and you're going to get a call from the salesperson. You click the button for Dwellsy, and your stuff just shows up on the platform, and everything just starts working. So from a user experience standpoint, it's incredibly straightforward. You just really need to click the button if you're on one of those systems.
How about on the renter experience on the other side? Any key features that you're seeing the renter kind of really love or double click or really be high on?
Yeah, one of the things that we get amazing feedback from, I think the traditional listing sites are really built, 1, with the understanding of the home buyer behavior, and 2, with the demands of the property manager, who is the client. So if you're on a pay-to-play classifieds site like a Zillow or an apartments.com, the true client is the property manager, and they do a great job serving that property manager, and it's expensive. They should do a great job serving them. But the listing is really designed with, first, the legacy of the home buyer in mind, and second, the needs and the interests of the property manager. They're not thinking as much about the renter. And so one of the things that we're really excited about what we've done at Dwellsy is, the renter is dealing with a really liquid inventory situation. They care about a couple of things really intensely: price, location, photos. How do we get that information in front of people as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and help them navigate it quickly and easily, and then help them get in touch with the property manager very quickly and easily. We're not trying to stay as an intermediary and get in between the renter and the property manager. We want the renter to get to the property manager quickly, so that they can, find their place as quickly as possible. And so we've really optimized the site for that. And I think that provides a really distinctive experience for the renter. And the renters have provided a lot of very positive feedback about that.
For most of the renters or the traffic coming to the website, I imagine it's mobile over desktop, or am I wrong?
Correct. Yeah, no, it's 70 to 80% mobile. Yeah.
Let's talk about AI. So everybody, the magical word, on the magical 2 letters. Are you guys using AI? Is it actually moving the needle yet? Like what's happening inside Dwellsy with that?
I'm so excited about everything that's going on with AI. We're using it on multiple different levels. So it has really revolutionized our data intake. We're applying it to help clean and process the data as it comes into the platform. And there are certain things that, we just didn't think it was possible to do because of the scale of manual intervention that would be required. We, intake an immense number of listings. It's very important that they be accurate. And there are a lot of, frankly, listings that were on the margin that we weren't able to process before. So they just weren't showing up on Dwellsy. And now we're able to process a lot more of those because of the LLMs and other AI tools. And so that's been really powerful. Certainly from a productivity standpoint, could not be more thrilled with how it's empowered our team. We are all doing way more with the tools at our fingertips now. And, whether it's the coders using Cursor or other tools to be more efficient on the coding side, the marketing team being able to stand up entire marketing automations that much more efficient use of time there, or even just me being able to do, basic research or writing or other things that I'm doing. Productivity gains that we all have are fantastic. And then, where I think it gets really exciting that we're starting to explore is how AI changes the interaction with our platform. One of the things that's interesting is renter preferences are so fluid and dynamic. It can be very hard to give the renter what they want. So AI offers a lot more abilities to query the data in a much more conversational way, rather than just being, traditional search of like, well, I need a 4-bedroom place, or I need a place that'll take my dog, or whatever it is that people are looking for, with just, elimination search, which has always been the way that it's been done. So we've been exploring that, and then, how people interact with our data as well, thinking about how AI can be integrated into that so that people can query the data more effectively.
So from behind the scenes, how hard was it to get your team to jump in the AI bandwagon? You guys are pretty techy, but was there still a huge gap of, hey, go use the tools, and people kind of rejecting you, or was it easy for them to interact with it?
We are a very techno-optimistic group over here. Pretty much everybody on the team has jumped in with both feet, very excited about the opportunity. And I just, every single day I see somebody coming to the team with like, hey, I just figured this out, and like, I'm better at my job now because of this, right? Or we're able to do this in a way to serve somebody better because of this. That to me is tremendously exciting. I think everybody's just seeing the opportunity for productivity improvements, whether it's for us internally or for our clients who are using our marketplace or the data. It's revolutionary, and people have really embraced it. We haven't seen any reluctance that I'm aware of anyway.
Any specific features that you're really excited about outside of the whole AI thing? Anything that you're like, this is in the market and I'm really excited to launch that in a little bit? Anything specific?
Yeah, so we've got a new product that we've been iterating over the last year called CompIQ, which is effectively a very lightweight revenue management system where people can get in and just get to the right rent for any property in the country very quickly, very efficiently. The mindset there is that the best quality research that people are doing is going out on the web and trying to find all of the places that might be comps for their properties. And it's a 2 to 4 hour process to do that. And we've basically automated that whole thing so that in 2 or 3 minutes, you can do that same analysis. And, the advantage is not only time, but you also don't have to worry about the quality of the data because it's coming from a truly high quality source of data, the only truly high quality source of rental data. And so that's been really exciting to see how people have interacted with that. We've got a few thousand people using that at this point, and it's just exciting to see that scale up and get broader adoption.
Talking about your entrepreneurial journey and kind of like the early years, what were the biggest obstacles you had to conquer as the company was starting to grow? Looking back, what were the biggest hurdles?
Yeah, it's so funny because this journey is like, there's so many different steps along the way where you don't know what's next and you're just doing the next thing. I was telling the story about naming the company. And I didn't even think about naming the company until I was like, okay, well, we need to incorporate because somebody said they'd give us some money. So now it's a real thing. If we're going to incorporate, we need a name. If I'm going to incorporate, I need a lawyer. And, all of these things kind of, you realize the needs along the way. So it's very much a, do the next right thing process at each step. And so, to some degree, it's prescribed because those things come around that you just need to do because you have no choice. But then there are these moments and inflection points along the way. What kind of product do we want to offer? How are we going to monetize this? How different are we willing to be? And does it make sense to be versus the legacy platforms in our space, and where do we want to be similar to those? All of those kinds of questions have been really like big thorny things to dig into, and we don't know if we've got the right answer. We just keep trying. How do we make it better? And then you have to be willing to stop things and throw them out and try something new. That constant iteration. We had 1 year, we weren't sure what our revenue model was going to be at one point, and I think we ended up launching 23 products in a single year as we rapidly iterated products to see what would fit with the market, what the market really wanted in our space, and what took off immediately.
Based on the initial idea that you had, what has been the biggest pivot, do you think, looking at the business model?
It's interesting because what we fundamentally sketched out at the beginning, we are still delivering on that exact same mandate. We knew out of the gate that this marketplace was a failure and that it needed a robust marketplace. Check, still the case. That's still what we're working on today. We knew that rent data was lacking out in the space. Now, I did not think rent data was going to be our early product. I thought it was going to be a later, but we knew that was a problem. We built it from the beginning as a data platform to be able to optimize for good quality data management and to be, have data science ready data. So that turned out to be very successful for us. But from a pivot standpoint, we've hardly pivoted at all. We're still laser focused on the same mandate we were on day one, which I'm more shocked by than anyone else. Candidly, I thought it was going to be, a lot more bobs and weaves along the way than we've had to do. I think the biggest thing has been, we knew from a revenue standpoint that the only thing we couldn't charge for was the only thing that had ever worked, the only thing that anybody had ever charged for, which is selling classified ads, which is the business model of all the legacy ILSs. And we knew if we did that, we'd end up staying small like everybody else has, because most people are not willing to pay for listings. That we took that off the table. And so we didn't know what it was going to be. It turns out to be rent data is our first thing.
Any fun war stories or life lessons? Like anybody listing somebody else's property or like anything crazy that you're like, I'm not going to name names, but that was hilarious looking back on it. You definitely have them as how much are you willing to share? But everybody has them.
There's so many things along the way. Launching 22 products in a year was an absolutely insane experience, and just failure after failure after failure through that of just things people didn't want. That was an interesting experience. We've had all kinds of things go our way and things go against us, but I don't know if there's anything that's really like juicy details. You need to get some property managers on the horn, because some of the stories I hear from them about just their experiences, my own experiences in adventures in property management. Oh my goodness, some of the insane things I saw. I have a friend who wants to write a book about that. I think that needs to get written. All the different
because I have stories. War stories about shootings and dead people and hurricanes and fires and floods and evictions. We'll keep those memoirs for the
my favorite from my own property management experience. I remember many years ago now, I had this one building that had opened up a gap between the next building. It was a 120-year-old building. And I get a call at like 2:00 in the morning from one of my tenants that there's a raccoon. I'm like, how is there a raccoon? She's got this window that literally looks at a brick wall. And this raccoon had dropped down and was literally like stuck up against her window looking at her bed. No way out. She sends me this photo of just this raccoon like this, right next to her bed. Like, oh God, that's terrible. So anyway, get animal control over, pop the window open, raccoon hops right in the case. Animal control came and went in like 2 or 3 minutes. It was amazing. But I just always remember that photo of the raccoon just like up there against the window.
You should print it out and put it somewhere in your office.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
If you were like looking at your view, you're really high view, you have all this data propping through the company, right? From the macro level, what can we learn as to what are you seeing as to rents moving, how landlords are trying to raise NOI, where are people going, vacancy? Just walk us to like something we can learn from like a very high level looking down at the market right now.
So from a national perspective, it's been fascinating watching the data and seeing what we've got versus the legacy sources of data in particular. So we break out all the different segments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, apartments, and then with single family homes, we look at all the different product types there as well. And the difference between multifamily and SFR has been staggering. Like if you look at kind of the benchmark product types in each one, the 1 bedroom apartment and the 3 bedroom single family home, the 1 bedroom apartment on a national basis has not moved in rent in 5 years. It's flat, which is shocking to a lot of people. And certainly there are submarkets where it has not behaved like that. There are submarkets where it's gone up a lot, some markets where it's gone down a lot. But the single family home during that same period is up a staggering amount, 25-30% in terms of rent changing. The difference in behavior, it used to be that a 1 bedroom apartment was not that different in cost to a 3 bedroom home. And now we've seen a permanent secular change, it appears to me, where that 3 bedroom home is materially more expensive than a 1 bedroom apartment. Now, you're looking at different product types. 1 bedroom apartments tend to be in urban areas that are much denser, higher dollars per square foot, et cetera, et cetera. 3 bedroom homes tend to be in suburban areas, generally lower cost on a per square foot basis. But the fact too, we're pretty close to the similar in terms of pricing nationwide. And now they've bifurcated and switched very materially. That is a big secular change in our market that I don't think people have fully appreciated.
And where are you seeing the most vacancy, or where are you seeing, is it metro markets? Is it Texas? Is it California? Is it, I don't know, walk me through who's in trouble right now.
I think you got to get really specific from a market standpoint. It's not just, you can't just say like, oh, Atlanta's in trouble or Phoenix is in trouble or whatever, though. Certainly like Phoenix is one of those markets that's been more challenged because of just a huge influx of new product that's been delivered over the past couple of years. But you got to get really down to the neighborhood level, the zip code level, the school district level, because there's really substantial differences, even just a few blocks away. Like we all know in the industry, the impact a lease up can have. A new community comes into an area and all of a sudden, okay, there's 300 new units that have completely changed the nature of that marketplace. But you go 2 miles away and it's a completely different market, looking at a completely different set of renters. So, I think one of the things that we now have the ability to do, which we really didn't before, was to get much more granular. And I think that's what's exciting about the data that we've got, is the ability to deep dive and say, okay, this neighborhood of Atlanta is in trouble. This neighborhood is thriving from a rental standpoint. This neighborhood is very much in the landlords have all the power because the inventory is tight and the rents are going up. In this neighborhood, renters have all the power because it's the opposite. So it's really interesting to be able to break it down to that level.
When you look at it from your seat, when you think about thriving or the opposite of that, what are the key indicators that you're looking at? Is it velocity? Is it change in rentals, like pricing? What do you look at and say, that's a screen, that's right? How do you look at it?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because we're a marketplace with renters on one side and landlords on the other, right? So if rents are going up, landlords are going to be happy to see that. Renters are not. Rents are going down, the opposite. So, we worked very hard over here not to think in terms of green or red, but just in terms of, who's favored right now in a market? Is it a landlord-friendly market right now? Is it a renter-friendly market right now? Who has more market power at this time? And I think one of the things that, we often lose is that landlords have very little market power in the space. Renters actually have substantially more market power because the renter actually understands the pricing much better than the landlord does, which is kind of shocking for most of us to think, because you think, landlord's in there and it's their day-to-day job. They should know a lot more about this. But the practical reality for pricing any one unit is that the renter will look at literally hundreds, sometimes thousands of nearly identical product in the process of finding their own place. And the landlord is never going to look at 1,000 one-bedroom apartments within a 5-block radius over the course of a 6-month period. Never. They've got to price that unit. They've got to get a price on it, and within 3 hours, they're going to do whatever work they can. They'll use, our Comp IQ product. They'll use, they'll go and do the old school research. Whatever they do in order to do that, they have to do it very quickly. And so the renters are much more sophisticated around pricing. The best the landlord can really do is get that market price nailed quickly and efficiently, so they don't take vacancy by overcharging and they don't lock lock in loss to lease by undercharging.
Vacancy is the killer. Vacancy to us was always
Vacancy.
You don't get that money back. No matter what you do, you don't get it in the future if it's not occupied. Hence why we preach
vacancy and turnover. Yeah, and I think a lot of people underappreciate the cost of turnover. Like you can run the numbers on it 16 ways to Sunday and come up with different answers. Yeah, and last analysis I did looking at a large portfolio, the one that I was managing, 60,000 units, and in many cases we saw that a typical turnover would cost us about 2 months rent. Right. And so if you're trying to decide whether to give that person a 4% increase or a 5% increase, and you're looking at a 2-month loss of rent for turnover, you got to think real hard about whether you want that 5% or whether that 4% is going to keep that person in there. Right.
We did that every single quarter in my first startup. We had 9,000 units, and it was like, how are we going to raise NOI? It was like, you charge for pet fees and you rub back utilities, you raise the rents 3% a year. And then it was like, wait a minute, what if we just don't let them move out and keep everybody in place? But you had 60,000 units, and I'm glad you got to the same math of like, wait a minute, that maybe you just keep them in there and do long-term leases.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Cool. I'd love to see more like 2-3 year leases. I think that'd be great for renters. It'd be great for landlords. It'd be a great option. It's shocking to me that we still have the overwhelming majority of people on 12-month leases.
As a co-founder of a company called Sell to Rent, that we do long-term leases, I agree with you.
Well, there we go. I didn't even think about that. I'm plugging it without knowing it.
I'm telling you, I did it from running the numbers ourselves. It flashes, but everybody pays attention, and I raised the rents $50. And not that they have a vacancy for 3 months and they're never gonna get that money. Yeah. Let's end on a high note, on a funny note. So you go back to Jonas in college, right? And you graduate and you either borrowed or you put together $50K because you sold your couch. It was a very nice couch. How do you invest that money today with knowing everything that you know, going back in time, your first $50K into real estate? How would you look at placing that money, diversifying all into one platform? How would you do it?
I'm a big advocate of doing the thing, right? So if I were to counsel somebody who is me at that point right now, I would say, go buy wherever you live, whatever product type is common there. If you live in Chicago, buy a 3 flat. Use that as your down payment and a little bit of a capital account, and property manage it yourself. Learn how the business works in every aspect by actually taking full control over. When you get later on in life, your career gets busier, then you can, use more passive investment strategies. But I'm a huge advocate of folks starting out with a very active investment strategy. And I love, starting off, if you're in Miami, buy a condo. If you're in, New York, try to figure out, whatever makes sense for your area, but buy something and manage it yourself. I think that's the best way to start in this business. There's no substitute for that hands-on experience.
Cool, man. Listen, that was awesome. Appreciate the honesty and the insights. Appreciate you jumping on and teaching us a couple of things about the rental market and what you're seeing out there. Anything else we should know about Dwellsy, or you as, you want everybody to connect with?
Yeah, any questions about it, feel free to email me, jonas@dwellsy.com. Dwellsy.com is the marketplace. iq.dwellsy.com is where you can go to check out our data. Thrilled to have the chance to chat, Alex. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely.